Hello folks, now that we're into a brand new year, it's time to take a look ahead and dive into everything that we know is coming, everything we think is coming, and everything that we hope is coming to Azeroth for the next year. We still have well over a month before the next major content patch brings in Dragonflight Season 2, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing new in the near future. In just a few days from this video going live, we'll finally get to see the fate of the Kirintor storyline from Khadgar, along with the return of Turbulent Timeways. That's not a huge amount of new content, but I guess it's something. Just a week after that, on the 14th, and we get the launch of the second season of Plunderstorm, which I suspect will be a lot more interesting, at least for those of you who did enjoy the first Plunderstorm. If you've been hoping for a new map, I'm afraid that you will be disappointed, as it is returning back to the Arathi Highlands. That does not mean that it's completely unchanged though. Data mining has revealed that the lengthy Renown track is being replaced with a plunder store, a new in-game store where you can spend your plunder in return for cosmetics. If you were one of the many players who ground it out for the rewards but didn't actually have a huge amount of fun in it, the store does at least mean that you can target the rewards that you want. There's also very likely to be a new practice mode. We don't really know very much about what that will involve, but I'm personally speculating that it could in effect be a non-PvP version so that you can scout out the area and get a handle on the mechanics. Now, just imagine if that also gave the in-game currency. Now, honestly, I think that's probably not in the spirit of Plunderstorm and a little bit too much to hope for, but you know, there were an awful lot of people who I think would have preferred Plunderstorm to be fully PvE, so I guess you never know. Open world content players are not completely being forgotten though, with very likely updates to the Lunar Festival, including some new rewards, and also possibly some new broom mounts for the Love is in the Air event. We've already had the announcement of patch 11.10, which is called Undermined, and it will very likely be going live in the PTR quite soon, perhaps even next week. So very soon we're going to know an awful lot about this new patch. What we do already know though is that it's going to have a brand new zone Undermined, allowing us to visit more of the Goblins' homeland. But data mining is also suggesting that there's going to be an extension to the Ringing Deep zone, and possibly, although this is a little bit less certain, an extension to the Zaldazar coastline as well. We'll also be getting a brand new season with a brand new 8-boss raid, Liberation of Undermined, and a new dungeon, Operation Floodgate, and 2 new delves. The Mythic Plus season will consist of the 5 War Within dungeons that we haven't already seen, including that new dungeon, along with Motherlord, Mechagon Workshop, and Theatre of Pain. Data mining over the holidays has also revealed that we'll likely be getting a renowned track for raiding, with rewards including the return of the Nars and even a portal to the raid entrance. And delvers can look forwards to getting a more reliable source of gilded crests, with level 11 delves potentially rewarding 6 gilded crests from every run with a weekly cap of 18. On the open world front, and we're getting a new dynamic ground mount system called Drive with a customizable Goblin Hot Rod mount. As you might expect, that does sadly mean that Undermine itself is going to be a no-fly area. But based on some developer interviews, I do suspect that the other extra areas that are being added will be flyable. And if you've been hoping for those new login scenes, then there's good news for you in that front, with 5 new scenes and the option to randomize them. We're also getting the very much requested option to have some additional character groups on the login screen to hopefully bring some order to the madness of all those characters on one page. I'm going to be doing a much more detailed preview of what to expect in the new patch soon, along with weekly coverage of all the new discoveries on the PTR after it goes live. So make sure to hit the subscribe button now. I'm getting really close to the all-important 1,000 subscriber marks, and your support in getting there will be greatly appreciated. Now, my own personal speculation is that we can probably expect to see this patch release either on the 11th or the 18th of February, with Season 2 launching the week after that. Now, this is us moving out of the area where we're pretty certain we know what's coming, and things are going to start to get a bit more vague and speculative from now on. Patch 11.15 very much looks like it's going to be called Nightfall. What is really interesting to me is how Nightfall is being labelled as new content, very much in the same way that Siren Isle was on the roadmap. Could this possibly mean that they're planning yet another mini zone? While Dragonflight's 10.15 patch did not get a new zone, it was nevertheless one of the bigger mini patches of Dragonflight, with the awesome time rifts and the little daycare questing hub. So even if we're not getting a new zone, I'm not ruling out something a bit bigger for this particular patch. When I think of the name Nightfall, what springs to my mind is the Arathi of Hallerfall's biggest fear, that one day Belladar will turn to void and not switch back. Now, if that was to happen, how could it affect the Hallerfall zone? Could we get an alternate version of it, similar to the Siren Isle Storm phase? The other bit of announced content for this patch is Horrific Visions Revisited. The original BFA Horrific Visions was essentially an attack on our minds by N'Zoth, so could this also be related to Nightfall? If Belladar does fall to the void, could we end up seeing some new void visions in the world? I do think that this could be a very interesting idea. The original Horrific Visions was another feature very similar to Plunderstorm, where some people really liked it, but others, well, really didn't. Speaking for myself, the way that I was forced to do the visions to upgrade my cloak, the way that failing more than one or two of those visions would leave you permanently behind with a cloak, and the way that it also required me to do the open world content just to get access keys to do those visions, that was a forced content loop that permanently tainted my enjoyment of the visions. Assuming Blizzard avoid repeating those particular blunders, I am kinda interested to see what they cook up. But at the same time, visions kinda feel like they fit into the same gameplay niche as Delves. That is, solo a small group challenging content. And do we really need two so similar game modes in the same season? And finally, there's an update to Children's Week. Children's Week is one of the more fun and least grindy of the holiday events, but it probably is very much overdue a bit of an update. I'm personally hoping for something that's perhaps a little larger in scope than we saw for the Wintervale updates. I'm expecting a likely early April release date for 11.15. Moving on to patch 11.17, and well, they aren't giving much away at all. X.7 patches typically include a prologue for the next major patch, and I do expect that pattern to continue. It also looks like Turbulent Timeways is coming back again. My guess is that Blizzard see Turbulent Timeways as a kind of an evergreen late season leveling catch-up, so I think this is going to be a very regular feature from now on. Looking back to Dragonflight's 10.17 patch, and that was very much when Dragonflight started to feel like it was running a bit out of steam. The Dream Surge feature was really a bit of a letdown after Time Rifts, and hopefully that is something that has gotten Blizzard's radar and will be looking to give us something with a bit more oomph this time around. There are a couple of things that are a bit conspicuous by their absence from the roadmap. One of those is the Pandaren and Drakthea Heritage armor sets, and this patch to me feels like a pretty decent window when you could drop that as content. Another possible option is an extension to Warband reputations. Currently only Dragonflight and War Within reputations are account wide, but we were promised that Blizzard would be doing the other older reps working backwards in time. So this could be a good window to get cracking in that by adding the Shadowland and BFA reputations to the Warband lineup. And that's it for patch 11.17, which I'm expected to see drop in early June. After two minor patches, it's time to get on to the next major patch, 11.20. Blizzard have confirmed that there's going to be a new zone. Surprise! Seriously though, while they don't share any details, there are some potential clues in the existing storyline for what that new zone could be. Orwena and the Haranir seem to be taking a more prominent role in the run-up to the Undermined patch, and there's a bunch of lore hints that suggest that the Harandir's homeland is called the Rootlands, and this area is even deeper below Ash-Kahet. So deep in fact that it could well be the roots of the mother world tree known as Gahanir, which may well be being threatened by all of that black bud that we're encountering in the lowest parts of Ash-Kahet. Another area of speculation has been the idea of the Haranir as an allied race. The allied race system was designed to make it a lot cheaper in terms of developer effort to introduce new races, and data mining has suggested that the Haranir have a lot more animations in their kit than is normal for NPCs. So is that Blizzard laying the groundwork for a new race? Well, if it was, it seems to me that a Haranir homeland zone would be the time to bring them into the game. Beyond that, of course, we can expect a new Season 3 with the usual raid, but Blizzard have also already confirmed there will be another new dungeon. Now, if you were wondering about a mega dungeon, Blizzard have confirmed in interviews that there will not be one in the War Within, so that other new dungeon will be just another standard dungeon. I'd also personally expect another delve or two. As well, we have no numbers to back this up. Whenever I go to the entrances of any delve, there always seems to be plenty of players hanging about. So I personally suspect that delves are turning into a bit of a success story for Blizzard. Patch 11.2.0 is also going to include a refresh for Brewfest. Brewfest is a holiday event that in my opinion has the most depths with the ram racing minigame. And that's obviously quite fun. So I'm going to be very interested to see what they do here. Release-wise, I expect patch 11.2 to land right at the end of July or possibly just at the start of August. Next on the roadmap is a formal announcement for Midnight, and that will likely mark the start of the alpha and beta test cycles. This does mean that the second half of 2025 is going to be pretty massive for World of Warcraft. Ever since it was announced back in BlizzCon 2023, I've always felt like Midnight sounded like it was going to be the highlight of the whole World Soul saga. And very unusually, we actually do have a few more details beyond just the name. Midnight is going to start with a reunification of the Elven nations based in and around Silvermoon, which is set for a bit of a revamp. It's not 100% confirmed, but I strongly suspect that Silvermoon is very likely to become the expansion's new hub, and I'm pretty excited about that. It's not the first time Blizzard have reused a city hub. Here's looking at Legion's Dalaran, and Silvermoon is one of the most atmospheric and beautiful capital cities. And its graphics, even though they date back from Burning Crusade, still stand up very well today. Ever since Battle for Azeroth, I have wanted to see the old world of Azeroth be made more relevant and also be updated to match the current events in Azeroth. I mean, the Argent Crusade have been cleaning up the Plagueland since 2010, and surely that's having some impact up there now. What that revamp is going to look like very much remains to be seen. But my own speculation is that we could see Eversong and the Ghostlands being combined into a revamped larger zone, along with the same treatment for the eastern and western Plaguelands. Try to fly north from the Plaguelands and you hit into an invisible wall, and that for me opens up scope to add another new zone up there. They did after all manage to tag on the Twilight Highlands onto the Eastern Kingdom's Baton Cataclysm, so how about opening up an outdoor version of a reclaimed Stratholme, lying at the heart of a new zone called Eastweald? And for a fourth zone, well, that could be an extended Isle of Keldanas, possibly forming part of a new archipelago of islands. That is, of course, all some pretty wild speculation in my part, but I do think it could be a very cool offering, especially if they fully integrate the new areas into the Eastern Kingdom's maps, with flying, of course. The big back-of-the-box feature, of course, is going to be player housing, and the alpha will likely give us the very first look of how all of that is going to work. I'm hugely excited for it, but I'm also a little apprehensive, so this is something I will be watching really closely. Blizzard have used Gamescom for major announcements in the past. I seem to recall that that was where Legion got its first announcement, for example. This year, Gamescom is in August the 20th through to the 25th, and I will not rule out the big reveal happening then. Of course, the War Within isn't over, and patch 11.2.5 is going to be taking us into seriously vague territory again. Calling out the 21st anniversary is quite interesting though. It's not really got the prominence of the 20th anniversary, but in many cultures, a 21st birthday is a big deal, and they have mentioned it in the roadmap. So are they planning something new again? Unlike Dragonflight, there's no mention on the roadmap of a 0.26 patch. This is not really a massive surprise, as again, back in BlizzCon 2023, Chris Metzen did say that they wanted to speed up the delivery of their expansions, and this has been widely interpreted as moving to an 18-month expansion cadence. That means that something does need to give, and that very likely looks like it will be the 0.6 patch, but also a Season 4, which is the other thing that's very much missing from the roadmap. Now, a Season 4 could still in theory land in 2026. But with the player feedback for Dragonflight Season 4 being a bit lukewarm, my own bet is that they have decided to skip it in favour of getting that earlier release. Whatever the case, patch 11.2.5 will very likely land in mid to late September. All this means that patch 11.2.7 is going to be the swan song of the War Within. I see no reason that they will not follow the usual pattern of having a midnight prologue to help us set up for the next expansion story. And if that's going to be an Elvish reunification, this could well be when we see the setup of that, along with hopefully the reveal of the next expansion's villain. And who could that villain be? There's quite a bit of speculation in the community that it could be Azshara. The last we saw of her was in Ny'alotha raid, where after we released her from the Zos clutches, she fled through a void portal. And in an expansion called Midnight, it does seem to me that we can expect to see a fair bit of the void. Azshara is a brilliant villain, and after the success of Xal'atath, another underused returning villain, well, it's certainly an idea that I would go for if I was Blizzard. The counter argument to that is that there isn't a massive amount of Naga activity in the current expansion, so this could just be hopium for the community, but personally, I'm certainly going to be keeping my fingers crossed. In terms of gameplay content though, we have actually had a little bit of a teasing hint from none other than game director Ian Hazzikostas. When asked about the chances of Remix returning, Ian pointed out that the winter end of the roadmap has a decidedly green and Legion-y tint. Now, if you were to do a straw poll of what other expansions could get the Remix treatment, I do suspect that Legion would be very high up in that list. It's not guaranteed, but I do think that Blizzard are cooking something Legion related to keep us busy in the traditional end of expansion lull. And if that was Legion Remix, I would certainly be up for it. But that would mean that we're not going to see any of those more experimental new ideas like Plunderstorm or Remix that we saw in Dragonflight. And that means that I do think there's a decent chance that that Legion content could well be something a bit more different and out there. Either way, if we are bringing back Legion, what better time to enable Warband Legion reps than in this final patch? But what does this mean for that house symbol that's at the end of the roadmap? Player housing is confirmed for Midnight, and with my bet for patch 11.2.7 release date being mid-November, a surprise late 2025 release for Midnight, I personally don't see it happening. Could they fit in a pre-patch before the end of the year? Well, I guess maybe, but dropping a pre-patch with all of the technical risks so close to the holiday, if I was a producer on the WoW team, for me, that would be a flat out, are you nuts, if anybody in the teams even suggested it to me. So, what is going on with that symbol? Adding the kind of player housing that I think the player base would really want, that is something that would allow us to place furniture and other objects anywhere in the house and maybe even put up our own walls and buildings would be a massive technical effort to deliver. While there are many toys that do allow for arbitrary placement in the open world, those are very temporary in nature. Doing that in a persistent way for the likely millions of characters that there are in World of Warcraft is a whole other ballgame. And you only need to take a look at the Warlord Garrison to see how the WoW's engines limits them in that regard. The scale of the changes to the game that are required to support the kind of player housing that we would all actually want is going to come with a bunch of technical risks for the Blizzard team. And one way to reduce that risk is to release the changes early at a time when player numbers, especially the all-important new players, are lower, rather than risk an absolute shit show at the start of a new expansion when hopefully a ton of new players are coming back. And what better way to give a pre-expansion test to those changes than to let us players use them, not on a limited test server, but for real in the live game. This would not mean having to release the entire player housing system into the War Within though. Most of the better player housing systems out there are multi-layered, with many having not just houses but also single room apartments and in-rooms. So how about this? Patch 11.2.7 will include not only the technical changes to support housing, but will launch player apartments, perhaps just in a couple of locations like maybe just Stormwind and Orgrimmar. That will let us get in and stress test much of the technology while leaving the real prize, the actual houses, for the launch of the Midnight expansion. I already mentioned that I think patch 11.27 will likely launch in mid-November. So what does that suggest for Midnight's release date? This is where we're getting into the I'm really far more likely to be way off than even remotely accurate territory. But my guess is that we'd be likely to see the pre-patch for Midnight in mid to late January and a mid to late February launch for the main expansion. And that's it, my personal take on how 2025 will play out for World of Warcraft. I did a very similar video last year, and it's fair to say that I got it quite a bit wrong. I mean, my idea for the pirate patch was open world invasions, but I also occasionally got close. Remix did indeed enable the ability to rerun the entire MOP storyline, another prediction of mine. So I wonder how well this video is going to age. I'll be super interested to hear your takes on the next year as well. What are you excited for? What do you hope that we will see? Let me know in the comments down below. If you found this video interesting, then do make sure to hit the like icon. And if you forgot to subscribe earlier, now is your final chance to fix that. Helping me get my channel to the magic 1,000 subscribers would mean the world to me. And if that's not incentive enough, hitting the bell icon will also ensure that you get notified whenever a new video goes live on my channel. I genuinely think that even though WoW has felt like it's been a bit of a lull lately, this is going to be a pretty massive year for the game, especially the second half, and I plan to cover it all. I do weekly news updates every Saturday, along with regular deeper dives into the game. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.